Can you hear us?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you. All right, we're good to go. All right, good afternoon. This is our public commission meeting for June 14th, 2023. We typically start these meetings with a prayer reading or thought, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. For the reading today, I actually have a resolution for Flag Day from 2021 that I wanted to read. So I will read that for the thought. Do I have somebody who's willing to volunteer for the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, perfect. So I'll read the reading first, and then we'll have you come up, state your name for the record, and lead us in the pledge. Perfect. All right, so this is a resolution that was passed on the 2nd of June in 2021 by the Utah County Commission. And it's resolution from Utah County recognizing Flag Day. Whereas on June 14, 1777, the Second Continental Congress adopted the American flag as the official flag of our nation. And whereas in 1949, the U.S. Congress permanently established June 14th as Flag Day, a day in which Americans celebrate the birthday of the Stars and Stripes. And whereas the flag serves as an emblem of the freedoms we enjoy, a representation of the ideals of our nation, and a beacon of liberty that we invite the rest of the world to emulate. And whereas our nation lifts its sights to the flag that has watched over us since the days of our founding, serving as a banner that testifies to the strength, courage, and resolve of the United States and its citizens. And whereas wherever our American journey has taken us, from battlegrounds to mountaintops and even to the moon, Old Glory has followed, reminding us of the rights and responsibilities we share as citizens of this great nation. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Utah County, Utah, do hereby recognize June 14th as Flag Day in Utah County, and we encourage our residents to observe Flag Day by displaying the flag of the United States of America throughout the week in which Flag Day occurs. Proclaimed and approved on the 2nd day of June, 2021.
Everybody rise, please. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, we have no work sessions today, so we will go right into building our agenda. All items not held will move to the consent agenda and be passed unanimously. Items 1 through 10, do we have anything to hold there?
None for me.
None for me.
All right. Items 11 through 20.
I have none.
None for me.
All right.
Commissioners, on number 12, if we could just clarify that it is the second agreement, the one for 2 years that the commissioners would be approving, not the first one.
Yeah, so there was a supplement email to us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Got that. Thank you.
Let's do 21 through 30. I know that we do need to continue item number 30 until the next meeting. There was an issue with that one. Any others?
No.
1 through 30?
No.
Okay. And then 31 through 34. I think we're going to hold item number 32. Anything else?
That was the only one I had.
That was it.
Okay, and the only closed session we need is item number 36, is that correct? So we can strike 35, 37, and 38. All right, Alice?
Okay, I have continuing item number 30 to the next meeting, which is June 21st, holding agenda item number 32. And then as far as closed meetings, we're going to hold 36 as stated and striking 35, 37, and 38.
That's correct. Great, thank you. Okay. On item 32, I'm looking. I think the only, sorry, just reviewing to look at. I think we only have two that the abatement was denied on, correct?
I believe so. I think that's right. And I know that the one that I was aware of that we wanted to talk about today was the Bowman matter.
Okay,
And I'll provide a little history here. And I know that Mr. Bowman is here and would be available to answer questions and add any additional context here. What I can say is that previously this property was on Greenbelt. It then was assessed a rollback, and that had come before the BOE, and there has been some discussion on that. There had been some discussion about potentially getting into a 5-year deferral agreement for the outstanding for that rollback. I did speak with Mr. Bowman about maybe 6 weeks ago about the possibility of entering into one of these 5-year agreements because he has applied for and has been accepted into the urban farming program.
okay.
When I was speaking with him, he wanted to entertain not going into the 5-year agreement, but coming before the commissioners and seeing about getting all of his rollback abated or refund. I have told him that my position as a property tax officer would be that we deny that because it is generally our practice when a rollback is assessed that we ask them to pay it. But that we do these deferral agreements occasionally. And so let me just say, when he was rolled back, there was 1.23 acres that he would no longer qualify for under urban farming, and so that 1,493 and 31 cents that tax would, well, he's already paid it. That would not come under the urban farming, but he would still have 4.07 acres that would still qualify for the urban farming, and
that's what these, was it, I think I saw 6,000?
Balance is 6,200.
6,200?
That's
That would be,
correct.
that's just on the 4.06?
Correct.
4.07? Mm-hmm. Okay.
and so yeah.
What have we done with others in this same scenario that went into rollback? Did we do a 5-year?
Yes, we've done that actually quite a few times, and it's my understanding that we have not just we have not just abated the entire rollback as he's requesting here.
So we typically do a 5-year deferral, but in the end, as long as they stay on urban farming those 5 years, they don't end up paying it.
Correct.
So it is eventually an abatement, but it just shows the intent to farm.
Yep, that's exactly right, Commissioner. And so, yeah, again, my recommendation as written is that we denied this. I will put in a little plug for Mr. Bowman. He has been great to work with. We've been able to have really positive discussions as we've gone forward with this. If we did enter into a 5-year agreement, we would likely recommend that. But
One other question. I know that the state legislature made some modifications to the urban farming in this last legislative session, and I know one of them dealt with transitioning from greenbelt to urban farming. Do we know if that passed and went into effect?
that's a good question.
See if I can pull up what
I'm
bill that
not
was.
sure.
See if I can pull
could
up
look
what
into
bill that
that.
was.
I can maybe speak to that.
Yeah.
Ben Stanley with the Attorney's Office. I can pull up the House Bill number, but it did pass, and it did have language that said that a transition from a green belt to an urban farm would not be the rollback tax would not be applicable in those situations. We haven't seen yet from any courts how they will interpret exactly what that language is intended to mean, but that bill did pass.
I thought it did. I thought I remembered something about that. This would be the first time that we've dealt
Yeah.
with something like that since then.
It's a novel case. I would recommend not changing our practice, but that language will be of interest. In fact, I have a presentation I'm doing on that very question in October. But it is one where there are some questions about how that will be applied and what exactly that means.
Now, and when was the effective date on that bill? And how would that apply to tax year?
It's House Bill 397, and I'll let Adam answer the other questions. I think it was the standard effective date, but I'm not sure what tax year that applies to exactly. So
I'm not sure as well.
It's going to sound the bill.
I guess it would probably be not the very year it was enacted, but I'm not an expert on the tax issue in that
Yes,
kind of
it-
a context.
Right?
Yeah, well, typically a bill goes into effect. It says, it's May 3rd,
Yeah, May 3rd
2023.
is
So it
typical.
went to effect May 3rd, but do we know which tax year that would affect? So the bill has gone into effect. It went into effect
Right.
as of May 3rd, 2023.
Yeah, that's the default effective date, but the lien date for the taxes is January 1 of 2023. So my assumption is that it wouldn't apply until next year, but I haven't researched that closely. So with that caveat, those are my thoughts. House Bill 397.
Thank you.
No problem.
Always fun to have a new process.
Yeah.
So your recommendations again?
As the request is written, our recommendation is to deny. However, if Mr. Bowman is willing to enter into the 5-year deferral agreement where we push this out, we would likely recommend that.
When was he approved on urban farming?
Just this year, is my
Well,
understanding.
for the 2023
For
year?
the 2023 year, yep.
And when are the rollback taxes being assessed for the 2022 year?
Is it 2022? I think 2022.
I see Carrie approaching. You had any thoughts before we hear from Mr.
Provide
Bowman?
information. So, I carry McConnell from the Treasurer's. The years were 17 through 21
Okay,
was
So the rollback would come-
billing.
okay, 17 through 21, okay.
Thank you.
I have no other questions for you. If Mr. Bowman wants to speak. Yeah, absolutely.
My name's Rich Bowman. We talked, Commissioner Gordon, you weren't here when Commissioner Gardner and Commissioner Sakovic, back in November of '21 is when I initiated my appeal regarding the rollback tax. I don't know if you remember the time when I was before you or anything like that.
Do.
We talked about it. I understood that we moved from out of state to Utah in 2016, and when we bought the house, they told us, basically, or you got Greenbelt, which is great. All you do is harvest your hay and sell it, and you're golden. That's the extent of what I knew about Greenbelt. So we did that, and then I think I got hit at the end of 21. I was pulled off of Greenbelt. I was notified that my house and garden and all that were more than a quarter acre. And so I was taken off it, and I was penalized a 5-year rollback tax, $8,000. And so my appeal for you was that, one, I had no idea that if I would have had a choice at the time when I bought the house, I would have just paid regular taxes. I didn't know. I realized somewhere along the line I was going to get penalized for something I had no idea I could be penalized for. So my purpose in coming here before you, and this is my purpose before, was to appeal that rollback tax. An $8,000 rollback tax is, obviously it's pretty disheartening. And my wife and I were retired on a fixed income. And my request back then, when we last met, I think was June of last year, 22, was, I think you said, Commissioner Gardner, was to get on the urban program and come back before you. So here I stand. And so I'm asked, I realize Adam was talking about how the recommendation is that it go, that it's standard procedure, SOP, to basically roll it out for the next 5 years once I'm on the program. But being the legislative body that you are, that you have the choice of that. You can modify that, and I'm asking that you would, if I could, because starting next month, my mortgage company paid the fine, and so starting next month, they're going to tack on an extra $1,000 in my mortgage, which is going to make it amount to $3,100 a month. So it's a bit more than I can afford. So, hence the reason I'm asking that you would abate this tax penalty.
Now, with the deferral over the 5 years and then the abatement, you wouldn't have to pay it, and so that shouldn't affect the insurance. So with the way the 5-year deferral works is you actually still wouldn't pay it. We just show that you're going to stay on the urban farming for 5 years and continue to farm.
Yeah, it's already been paid though.
The 1,000.
It's they're gonna,
1,400 has been paid. What about
the 8,000 was paid by my insurance by my mortgage company because they didn't want it to go into lien.
Right, so they're going to recover by adding an additional 1,000 to your mortgage.
Yes, and hence my coming before you and humbly asking that you would consider that rather than a 5-year, progressive rate.
No, and I think typically on a rollback abatement, we stick with the 5-year deferral. But with the fact that the state legislature recognized this as an issue and changed the issue, and if the rollback had occurred this year, he wouldn't have that issue. You see what I mean? I'm more willing to be lenient on this just because we actually have state law now that shows that this wouldn't have been assessed had this happened this year.
And he was working toward the
And his
urban
problem is
farming.
literally exactly why the legislature passed the law.
Right, yeah, I remember him and his family a couple of years ago.
Thank you.
The thinking behind 5 years of deferral time, right, is to make sure they continue in the, right?
Correct, to
urban
make sure they
farming
continue
or
in the urban farming.
Whatever that goes. What happens if that status changes again? Is there a rollback even worse? Do we know? Does that make sense, my question?
Yeah, the way we would structure the agreement is if at any point during the agreement that he no longer qualifies for urban farming, then the taxes that are due would be moved and make them due right away.
What about under urban farming now? If he's on urban farming now and he goes off urban farming, is there any rollback?
Well,
I know on Greenbelt there's, but on urban farming, if you no longer, like if you're farming under urban farming and then you decide not to farm next year and you don't qualify, is there a rollback for that?
Yes, there is. So both urban farming and Greenbelt have a rollback of 5 years. So even if you've been on them for 20 or 30 years and gotten that preferential tax treatment for a very long time, you get a 5-year assessed rollback when you come off of it.
Okay.
And so this House bill was intended to sort of address the question. The reason we do the deferral agreements is you have a 5-year period to be on Greenbelt. If you defer that over those 5 years, you can be sure that that rollback was properly accounted for over those 5 years, because that's how long the rollback would be under either urban farming or Greenbelt. This House bill addresses that question of what happens if somebody goes from one to the other and then goes off. They would be assessed a rollback even then.
And where it's been paid, sorry, this is
I
kind of
think
my
it
first
could be
one.
refunded.
We would
Yeah.
refund that?
Yes,
We would refund the 6,200.
yeah, property insurance will repay that.
You guys have any other questions?
My only other question is then, if we were to, go the route that you were suggesting, does someone else have the ability then to appeal that again to a different board?
I don't think
Does
so.
that make
because-
sense? No.
No, because in BOE they do, but in this one they don't.
Understood. Okay.
And And so then if we abate this, then it goes back to the mortgage company and then
Yes.
the mortgage doesn't go up.
Yep.
So I'm fine in this case abating it only because of the state law, that I think will give us the preference. If the state law hadn't been passed, I think it would be setting a bad legal precedent. But where we have the state law, whereas if this had happened to him this year, it wouldn't have happened, I would be okay with it.
And the only heartburn I'm having with that is that it's a tax year prior to this. So I see where you're going with that. My only question then would be, if we deferred it for 5 years, would we wait 5 years and then refund the 6,000? Does that make sense?
Well, in the past, the people that I've dealt with in the past, they haven't even paid it yet.
Yeah.
And so it just defers for
Yes.
5 years, and at the end of the 5 years, we just abate it.
Yeah.
This is the only case that I've seen that somebody paid it, and then there would be a refund.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
You're good.
So, yeah, because this is a situation where they've already paid it, instead of abating a portion, instead of abating it all at the very end, what we would do is after a year, we would refund a fifth. And that way, he is made whole as if he had been in Greenbelt the whole time. But then let's say 6-7 years from now, he decides, you know what, I'm done farming. Then we can collect that rollback again. So that allows us to be able, whether we collect the rollback today, 2 years from now, 20 years from now, we can still collect that rollback.
I don't think I have any other questions.
Yeah, I have none. This was pretty, I'm happy to make a motion to go with the 5-year abatement.
You want to do the 5-year abatement?
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to, well, actually, we can't even do that, actually. As we look at it, the 5-year abatement, yeah, that's not actually on the table. What's on the table now is to approve the whole abatement or not. He would have to apply for the 5-year abatement.
That's correct. Yeah, and we could bring it back in a week or two with the refund agreement, or and then that could be approved then, if that's the direction that Mr. Bowman would want to go.
If we were to take that up now, we couldn't just simply have the documents then completed separately and not have to come back here?
He would have to apply for it.
Yeah, but if we're authorizing this process,
Didn't apply for the abatement.
would that allow us to do this?
I mean, he could potentially amend his petition right now, but as Commissioner Sakovic pointed out, right now, this application doesn't even contemplate the 5-year.
Yeah, he's just
Okay.
asking
All
for
right.
it.
Got it.
Current application just asks for a complete abatement or not,
Okay.
not the 5-year, which is what the recommendation is.
Okay, yeah.
So what they're saying is our options right now are just to approve or not approve. And the problem is what the law stated when you applied was that the rollback be assessed. And I think we have appetite to defer that because that's what all of our legal contracts show for us. But what I'm getting the sense that the commission would prefer that we do the 5-year abatement because that's what our contracts have. But our issue is that you've only asked for a full abatement. And so what my fellow commissioners are wondering is if you would be willing to modify your application for the 5-year abatement.
So basically, my choice is if I agree to modify it, then I go to the 5-year extended.
Yeah, and
Basically.
then a refund would get sent every year for 5 years. Would this be the first year that it gets sent? Would a refund get sent this year since he did qualify? Because that was for the 2021 through 2017. And then on 2023, he applied for abatement. So would he get a refund this year of 1/5 of that?
Yeah, I think we would structure it to give a refund for the 2022 year because he was rolled back in 2021.
Okay, so he would get a refund for the 2022 year in this year and then 2023?
Yeah, that's correct, Commissioner.
Okay. So you would get a portion, so basically what would happen is if you modify your application to be the 5-year rollback, you'll get a partial rebate this year for the 2022 year. That would be around $1,200 would come immediately, and then basically $1,200 a year for the next 4 years.
Okay.
So I think on the way that would translate for your personal finances is if this is going back to the mortgage company, they would give you a credit in future years every time they got that $1,200 check.
So my option is I can accept that or basically
You have the rollback.
eat it.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, I'm kind of over a barrel, so I guess I'll have to accept it.
Okay, so modify that. So if he's willing to do that, is that something we can vote on?
Yes, I think we could vote on that right now, and then we get the agreement and sent over for all the parties to sign.
Okay. So when we make the motion, it will just be for the 5-year abatement on
Yeah.
this property.
In lieu of the full abatement.
Yeah, a deferral, a 5-year deferral.
I'll make a motion then that we approve this with a 5-year deferral with an annual
Rebate.
portion, a fifth of that refund each year, beginning, it seems like, with the 2022 tax year. So you would see a refund of 1/5 of that amount in 2023.
You'll get about $1,240 a year.
Yeah.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that's a sub-motion of, I would say, of number 32. Should we take 32 as a whole now?
Yeah, I'm happy to adopt or make a motion that
Rich.
we
Thank you.
Thank you.
approve the rest of the tax actions in agenda item 32.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. And that is the end of our actionable agenda. Before we go into closed session, we'll have public comment. For public comment, it is a one-way comment. We don't interact on those, and there's a 2-minute time limit. Do we have anybody for public comment? Yeah, welcome. When you get up here, state your name for the record, and then we'll start the 2-minute clock. Thank you.
My name is Thomas Cook. I'm a citizen of Orem. And first of all, I would like to say thank you for accepting or taking public comments. I know other places throughout the country don't necessarily allow it, which is a devastation. That being said, I'd also like to start off with highlighting the obvious, and that is myself and everybody else in this room in the state of Utah and all Utahns are required to follow all laws, regulations, bills, and executive orders to the T. If we don't, there's obviously some repercussions, ramifications that follow. With that flag flying in here, to me, it definitely gives the appearance that there's a double standard. In many cases and in this specific case, for government entities. For those that are following SB 31, the state flag change, the effective date is March 2024. So with that, our original and actual state flag should be flying up there. Otherwise, this is giving a clear impression of a double standard within government entities, or you're giving us the leeway as to how we cherry pick which bills and executive orders we follow. So with that, just like the last ones, this last commission meeting, I ask that you demonstrate a government's entity to follow the rules, the laws, the regulations, the bills, and the executive orders as written. Thank you.
Thanks, Thomas.
Anybody else? Okay, all right. Seeing none, thank you. We'll go into closed session.